Spécial guest, télévision Studio Pass.
But I'm going back to my roots. Born and raised in Southern Oregon, dirt poor with nothing to lose. I learned about faith and working hard. It saved my life, that dairy farm. Now everywhere I go, I take you with me in my heart. Oh, I grew up in a place nobody ever heard of. We didn't have much, but we always had each other. Roots run deep, and nothing's gonna change me. Bonanza in my blood. This town built me from the ground up. Built me from the ground up. I learned to drive at 11, out by the sugar beets. My daddy's 69, brown GMC, stick shift with a bench seat. And Hotel California, stuck in the tape deck on repeat. And now everywhere I go, I take you there with me. Because I grew up in a place nobody ever heard of. We didn't have much, but we always had each other. Roots run deep, and nothing's gonna change me. Bonanza in my blood. This town built me from the ground up. Built me from the ground up. There's a little cemetery down off of Main Street. That's where my mama's buried. It's where I left a big part of me. Sometimes I get a little choked up when I think about the past. All my friends that have come and gone, but memories that always last. Yeah, the memories that always last. Yeah, the memories that always last. Botown, I think about you when I'm looking back. My roots run deep, and I will never be ashamed of that. In a place nobody ever heard of. We didn't have much, but we always had each other. Roots run deep,
Well, good morning. My name is Ben, and those are my two children, Caleb and Macy, and it's Macy's 7th birthday today. Happy birthday, Macy. Well, again, good morning. Welcome to Crossroads. This is going to be a wonderful weekend. It's going to be a great day, and I invite you to go ahead and stand up and be our guest and sing. I'm going to be playing my guitar. If you could help me clap, that'd be great. Staring into your eyes makes my heart come alive. Suddenly brought to life when I met you. Reaching me on the sky, running deep, stretching wide. Perfect love realized, here with you. Love is the real, you will never let go, never let go. Oh, it's more than just words, love beyond my control, out of control. This is real love, this is real love. This is real love, this is real love. Holding my heart to the very end. Jesus, I found you freedom. This is real love, this is real love. In your heart I found. You want this, I want you. You won't let me down. You got me, you got me. Love is still real, it will never let go, never let go. Oh, it's more than just words left beyond my control, out of control. Pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart to the very end. Jesus, I found this is real love, this is real love. It's so good to know that we have real love in Jesus, amen? Pull me closer, pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart to the very end. Jesus, I found in your freedom. This is real love, this is real love. Getting into your eyes makes my heart come alive. Suddenly brought to life when I met you. This is real love, this is real love. This is real love, this is real love. Oh, you're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart to the very end. Jesus, I found in your freedom. This is real love, this is real love. Man, good morning. If that wakes you up, I hope it does. If not, we've got some coffee in the cafe. We're going to continue in worship as we sing this song we learned last week called Wonder. It's good to know that Jesus has given us this love. Do you agree with that? I don't say that flippantly. I know that he loves me, and I know that he loves you more than anything. So let's continue to sing about his love and the wonder that God can provide in all that he's done.
Have you ever seen the wonder in the glimmer of first sight? As the eyes begin to open and blindness meets the light, have souls say,
pray with me? God, we love that you are so wonderful. That when we see you, it'll take a lifetime and even more to know exactly who you are. But here you still have revealed yourself to us in the wild, in the wonder, in the lights, in the creation, and in the love that we experience. God, we thank you. As we continue in worship, God, would you just take these words that we're about to sing? Would you move in our hearts already? Would you let it be something that we can sing that is true? Let us put our faith in you this morning. Let faith arise. In spite of what I see, Lord, I believe. But help my unbelief, I choose to trust you. No matter what I feel, let faith arise. You sing that with me? Let faith arise. Let faith arise. For my champion's not dead, he is alive. And he already knows my every need. Surely he will come and rescue me. Oh God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. Let's sing Let Faith Arise. Let faith arise. See the kingdom come. I lift my eyes. Battle has been won. My God is faithful. Every single word he said is true. Oh, God of miracles, come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible, 'cause you're the God of miracles. Let's sing This World May Be Shaken. Here we go. This world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken. Your love is healing. Help me to be courageous too. Sing that again. This world is shaking. This world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is healing. Help me to be courageous too. There is nothing impossible. Oh God, miracles come. You know, I can tell you the truth that God has done some miracles in my life. Maybe he's done some miracles in your life. If you can attest to that, say amen, will you? Amen. Thanks for singing along this morning. You can have a seat. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, my name is Ben. I'm really glad that you're here. And one of the reasons I'm glad that you're here is because I love people. I love what we do here on Sunday mornings. I love that you're here, and I love that we get to celebrate July 4th as we played with my daughter and my son earlier. And if this is your first time, a special welcome to you. I just want to give you something if you're here. If you're here for the first or second time, we have something special for you. And it's a little book. It's in a book called the back called Let Hope In. And we want to give that to you because, well, thanks for coming. But I don't want to forget the people who are watching online. So if you're online, I want to say hi to you. Hi, online people. How you doing? Can everyone say hi to online people? See, you're loved too. All right. So I'll give you a second to pull out your program you got as you came in. And inside that program, you'll find a connection card. And you remember how I said that I love people. We love people here on staff too. And the elders, we love people. We love that you're here. And we want to connect with you. So that's why we came up with this connection card. And if everyone can fill out their name, and if everyone can fill out their email address, that way everyone's, looking down the road, oh, we're all doing this? Yeah, we're all doing this. We're putting in our name and putting in our address. But if this is your first or second time, you've got some more information you'd like to share, we'd love to have your phone number. We also would love to hear any prayer requests or how you heard about Crossroads. Those kind of things we'd love to hear about, and we'd like to reach out to you and be able to connect with you throughout the week. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to look at some of the people that we do life together with. We do missions together. And this week, we're going to look at Cherry Street Mission. And not only do they have a table here today, but we also have a video. So check out this Cherry Street video.
Men, women, and families come to Cherry Street by many paths, but all are broken and in need. Through the support of the community for the last 70 years, Cherry Street serves all who come to us. How they got here, how we helped, and where they are in their faith are stories with different beginnings, but the goal is always the same: redemption.
Originally, I thought I came here because I'm 62 years old. I thought I was coming here to get out of the house, to get some fresh air, and to get some more training. What I didn't realize was that God had a greater purpose.
I found all of my peace through the bottle. I ended up calling Dan and saying, hey, can you help me?
In 1947, Jesse and Bertha Fleck founded Cherry Street Mission Ministries. Their calling was to provide people in need with sustenance for the body and nourishment for the soul. The mission provided meals, shelter, and the proclamation of the gospel of redemption for the poor and homeless.
I've got a job already. I just got hired yesterday, as a matter of fact.
I have learned to be more confident.
I've always been, I guess, a man of God.
So even the people that you work with or who are in your new normal life, they've all had their struggles, and so it helps you to be more understanding.
I think that that's when God really started to open things up and touch me and put his hand on me and change me.
The future vision of Cherry Street is to end homelessness, aiming to assist men and women to obtain a better life. It's a vision lined with aspirations, employment goals, and healthy relationships.
If you are thinking about donating to Cherry Street, I would say to follow your heart, because you never know. Every little bit helps, it all adds up, but you never know which little piece is going to change somebody's life forever.
You can find more information there at the booth. And let's be a welcoming church and go greet them and say hi to them, would you? And stop by that Cherry Street booth. Now we're going to continue in a series that we've done before called At the Movies, but we're going to do some different movies. We're going to do Beauty and the Ben. This week is Beauty and the Beast, and it's going to be fun. So the next couple weeks, you'll come back, you'll have some more popcorn and do some more movies. But let's check out At the Movies.
Télévision diabolique. Marionnettes can run down the shouting and will over your rest. La cuisine, on t'aime, ici Ramsès tout heure. Choisir une wine qui est marquée, envoyez ensuite à la massage. I can dance, I can dance, and my friends is
Beauty and the Beast. How many of you guys watch those movies when we do that and just think, oh, can we just watch the rest of it, right? Well, you got to listen to me, so sorry about that. I like Beauty and the Beast. It's a movie that I enjoy. I actually like musicals a little bit. And I remember watching the cartoon when I was a kid. Me and my wife went and saw that movie, and I enjoyed it. It was a little bit slow. I think I like the cartoon a little bit better. I guess my attention span is a lot similar to a young kid, and so that's probably why I like the cartoon a little bit better. But this week, we're talking specifically about the concept of be our guest, or the idea of service. But before we even get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about greatness and what greatness is. Greatness is defined this way, if you look it up in the dictionary. One of the ways is a person who has achieved importance or distinction in a field. someone who is important, highly significant, notable, remarkable, exceptional at something. That's what greatness is. When we think of greatness, we probably start to think of certain people, right? So if I said right now, who are some great people that you know? Or who are people that would be equal with greatness? You would probably think of some maybe some certain presidents or celebrities, or maybe you would start thinking of people that have been really great in their field of business, and maybe people like a Steve Jobs, right? Or a Bill Gates, people that are famous, people that are highly successful. We might even think of some athletes that are like at the top of their game, like maybe we would say LeBron James, or we would say a Tom Brady. When we think of greatness, we often start to think of the concepts of like fame and fortune. If we're honest with ourselves, when we think of greatness, we all have like this deep desire, no matter if we mask it, hide it, bury it, to be recognized as great. There's nobody that would walk into a room and say, man, I wish that no one knew who I was. Maybe in a moment you did something really stupid. That might be the case. But no one would walk into a room and say that. A lot of us would walk into a room and say, I just want to be the person that's known in the room without a name tag. Like we have this desire for greatness that's wired into us. And sometimes it spills out, and sometimes we hide it, and sometimes we're really clear about it, and we say that we just want to be great at something. We all seek greatness. We all like to be associated with greatness. We like to be around people who are great. This week, our youth pastor, Mark Ortis, is at FMYC. FMYC is in Colorado, and it is where all of our youth are. A lot of our youth are right now. Actually, they're on our way back from an awesome conference they were at. But one thing I noticed is Mark would post pictures of himself while he was in FMYC. And what he would do is he'd take selfies and he'd post them up there. And what I didn't notice this. Mark didn't go, hey, look, this is the person that washed the dishes at FMYC. Just wanted to take a picture and a selfie and show you that. No, what he did is you saw different artists or different speakers that he liked or people that we know that are famous, and he posted them on Facebook. Why? Because we like to be associated with greatness. I have a picture that I want to show you of myself when I was probably 12, one that I like to show people. So here's myself when I'm 12 years old, and I'm at the Palace, and in the back of the Pistons. Let's show this next picture here. So here's the picture, right? My dad used to have, with his company, seats on the floor at the Pistons game. They were seats right in the middle at half court, and there was nobody in front of you. And it was a really cool experience. And so I've got those pictures there because in the background are the bad boy Pistons, right? So right behind me were like that you saw Dennis Rodman and Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer and some of the greats. And why did I keep that picture? Why did I take that picture? Because they're great. We like to be associated with greatness. Thanks, Dave. They are great. That's what I don't see a lot of people. I don't go to a lot of conferences, a lot of events, and see somebody get up and say, hey, look in the background. If you look in the background of this picture, you can see Keith Luke, right? Because nobody would know who he is, right? Maybe you guys do, but nobody at a conference would. But we like to pick up moments and pictures when we're around greatness. Sometimes greatness gets us into trouble, this desire for greatness. We start comparing ourselves with others and deciding that we're great because maybe we don't have it as bad as they do, or maybe vice versa. We look at other people and we think they must be great and I'm not because I don't have it as good as they do. About 8 or 9 years ago, my uncle gave me his 1985 4 winds, 17-foot speedboat. He gave it to me, free. Didn't work, but he gave it to me. I fixed it, and we've used it for the last 7, 8, 9 years. And I remember when we first got that boat, I was like, I got a boat. Look at me. That's awesome. I know lots of people that don't have boats. I got a boat. Okay, remember, 1985, right? That's when this boat was made. And classic is probably not the word that I would associate with it now, but there are times when we back that boat into the water, many of them, a matter of fact, where there's a really nice boat next to me. And it didn't take long to go from, man, look at it, I got a boat. to, man, I hope nobody sees me in this boat, right? Right? And I start looking at the person's next to me, and I'm like, man, I wish I had one of those. And then you start to rationalize it, and you say, well, I mean, they probably made some really bad financial decisions to be able to afford that boat, and you start to downplay it a little bit. And if you're not careful, eventually you find yourself in the situation where you go, I wonder where I went wrong. Like, how come other people have all this stuff and I don't? Like, maybe on the greatness scale, I'm not very high. I wonder where I went wrong in life, and we start to compare ourselves. C.S. Lewis says this when it comes to this comparison trap. I'm going to put it up here for you. Pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only of having more than the next man. It is the comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. Once the element of competition is gone, pride is gone. I think when it comes to greatness, God has wired us in a way that we all have a deep desire to be great. And He doesn't look at it as a bad thing. He wouldn't have designed us that way otherwise. The problem becomes when we try to seek greatness in the eyes of the world rather than in the eyes of God. See, I think this greatness need is not something that we should all just distinguish. It's not something that we should avoid. It's not a bad thing. God wired us to desire greatness. What is bad is when we seek greatness in the eyes of the world rather than in the eyes of God. There's a story in the Bible in Mark, and it talks about one of Jesus' interactions with the disciples and when He was trying to teach them what greatness is. And you got to understand in the context of this story, Jesus had just taken 3 of the disciples kind of on their own special trip. Right? They had gone up on the mountain, and all the other disciples didn't get to go. Only 3 got to go, James, John, and Peter. They were identified as Jesus' closest friends, Jesus' closest disciples, those which were close to Jesus' heart. They would have been the top 3 disciples. And so this had just happened, and the disciples were all gathering, and they were beginning to argue about who was the greatest. And we know this is probably happening because of what just happened where Jesus singled out 3 of them. You know, one thing that I try to do in my life is I try to schedule time for my kids where we just do special stuff, just me and them. I call them daddy dates, right? And we'll do it maybe when one kid's at home and the rest are at school, and I'll go pick them up and take them to Chick-fil-A, or maybe after a last day of school, or just times where it's just me and them, right? And they're really good times. But what happens, if you're a parent, you know this, what happens whenever I come home with the one kid that got to do the one thing that the rest of the kids didn't get to do? They start telling them, right? They're like, guess what I got? I got ice cream and you didn't, right? We went to Chick-fil-A. It was awesome. I know you went to Chick-fil-A with Dad also, but my time at Chick-fil-A with Dad was much better, right? And it begins to compare, and this begins to happen. So this is going on with the disciples. And they're going, which is greater? And 2 of the disciples that just went on the Chick-fil-A retreat with Jesus, right? They're saying, hey, we're going to ask Jesus if we can sit on His right and on His left, which would have been distinguished as where the important people would have sat. And I find it interesting that when this is all going on, Jesus' response is not to the disciples that they shouldn't try to be great. A matter of fact, he gives some qualifiers. Do you understand what it would take to sit on my right and on my left? And they claim that they do, and Jesus explains it, and they still say, yeah, we would be willing to do that. And Jesus does not say, well, greatness is a bad thing and you should avoid it. Matter of fact, He responds this way. I want to read it to you. It's in the Message. Mark 10:43 says this. Jesus says, whoever wants to be great must become a servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be a slave. That is what the Son of Man has done. He came to serve, not to be served. When you came in today, you received a program. In there's some spot for some notes. There's some spots there. There's 3 blanks, and at the bottom there's a big blank. And I want you to fill this in. And if you catch nothing else today, catch this. We're going to build this whole thing on this. It's actually the 4th thing there, and it says this: greatness is measured by service, not by status. See, we have this wiring that we want to be great, and we get caught up in this lie that we earn greatness by trying to earn it in the eyes of the world. But Jesus says, no, you really, if you're a follower of me, you should be trying to earn greatness in my eyes, and this is how you earn greatness. Greatness is measured not by status, but by service. By service. Now, I want to dive in to the Bible in a passage today where I think Jesus talks about this specifically and how we live into this concept of service. So we're going to look at John chapter 13. We'll put this up on the screen for you if you want to pull out your phone and look it up in the app or your Bible. We're going to spend most of our time throughout this passage today, so I'd encourage you to do that. And Jesus shows us how to serve like this. It says in John 13, verse 1, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he had loved them to the very end. So Jesus knew at this point his end was coming, and he wanted his disciples to just grasp the full extent of his love. Now, the verse goes on to say it was time for supper, and that might be insignificant if we read right through it, but it actually was significant. It was probably the Passover meal that they were gathering to celebrate as disciples, but more importantly, it was the time that we read about when we talk about the first communion. So Jesus was preparing right up to this first communion, where Jesus would tell them for the first time the idea of communion and breaking of bread and the wine representing his blood. And it was an important moment as they led up to this. And it goes on to say, and the devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything and that he had come from God and we returned to God. So when he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. Often, I think when we read this story, and if you've ever read it before, we kind of skip on to the next part. The part with Peter and Jesus, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I think we go through this so fast that we miss something really important that just happened in the verse. What did Jesus already know when he was washing the 12 disciples' feet? That one of them was going to betray him. Jesus knew that one had already betrayed him. As a matter of fact, he'd already referenced in John 6:70, he said that he referenced to one of the disciples as the devil. Jesus knew what Judas was going to do. Jesus knew that Judas had already started in it. And what did Jesus do? He washed his feet. He washed Judas's feet. All too often, I would say, as Christians, we decide that job number one is that we make sure people understand where they are wrong before we serve them. We make sure that people understand, this, you're not right on this. What you're about to do is wrong. And we can't serve people until they fall into our beliefs and behaviors. We say, I would love to serve them, but I just can't get past their lifestyle and their beliefs. And, I don't really want to enable that kind of behavior, so I can't help them. However, seeing eye to eye obviously wasn't a requirement for Jesus to serve someone or to wash their feet. Because Jesus and Judas clearly and obviously did not see eye to eye. Jesus calls us to serve people who we don't agree with. People who we consider less than ourselves, even though we would never admit it. People who drain us. People who don't appreciate it. People who we struggle to love. People who we would consider irresponsible. And we might say, are we being enablers then? Are we being enablers by serving people that are doing things that just aren't helpful to their lives? And I would say this, there's always a way to serve somebody. There's always a way to serve somebody. A lot of us maybe come out of a store or in a parking lot and we'll get approached by somebody, or we'll see somebody on the corner of the street and they'll be asking for money, right? And then they might go, so Keith, you're telling me that, I know that they're trying to con me, they're trying to rip me off. I can tell, I've seen them there before. The story never matches up, so just go ahead and give them money. Is that what you're saying? That's actually not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's always an opportunity to serve, but sometimes we're just too busy to do it. Maybe it's not that you need to give that person money. Maybe it's you need to ask them their story. Maybe it's this train station they need to get to, you need to give them a ride to. Maybe it's this family that's sitting at McDonald's that hasn't eaten for a while, you need to go there. Or maybe when they're asking for money in the hotel, you call the hotel first. But sometimes we're like, it's just a lot easier to say no. There's always a way to serve somebody. Jesus calls us to serve people who are even self-righteous. And maybe we say, well, I don't want to reinforce the fact that they already think that they're better than me, so I'm not going to humble myself before them and serve them. I don't want to lead into that. If people don't honor and respect us, they don't treat us right, we don't want to serve them. But I would encourage you to catch this. We can serve others even if we don't see eye to eye. We can serve others if we don't see eye to eye. Jesus did. And I would encourage you that greatness is measured by service, not status. And sometimes it's not about seeing eye to eye, as Jesus sets that example for us as he washes the feet of the disciple that he loved, that would turn him over to death, that would betray him, that had already put into play what was about ready to happen. And the interesting thing is, and it's kind of ironic in this moment, you know why Judas was so ticked off? You know why Judas didn't want any part of this? Is because exactly what Jesus was doing, he was humbling himself. Jesus was supposed to be great, but he was humbling himself, and washing feet was exactly what ticked Judas off. See, Judas thought he was on board with the next big, great ruler, leader, as defined by the world, and Judas was really excited to be seen as great, that desire that God wires into all of us in the eyes of the world. But Jesus said, that's not greatness. This is greatness. The verse goes on in verse 6, it says, when Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I am doing, but someday you will. No, Peter protested, you will never ever wash my feet. Jesus replied, unless I wash, you won't belong to me. Simon Peter exclaimed, then wash my hands, my head as well, Lord, not just my feet. But Jesus replied, a person who has bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet to be entirely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not all of you, for Jesus knew who would betray him. That is what he meant when he said, not all of you are clean. Why was this such a big deal? Why was washing someone's feet such a big deal? We got to understand the custom of that time. In the custom of that time, they would spend lots of times on dusty dirt roads, and they wore sandals. Now, when they were in the house, they would often walk barefoot. And so that was one reason that washing feet had to happen. The other reason is they didn't sit at a table necessarily like we would think of, where there were chairs. Often the table was lower, and they probably would have sat on the ground, which meant the feet were pretty darn close to the plate, right? And so Jesus, in this moment, no one has washed the disciples' feet. Jesus decides that he is going to do it. But here's the other thing that you need to know is that this was not normally done even by the person that owned the house. This was normally done by the servant, the lowliest of servants. And to not do this would be a huge breach of hospitality. And you see the dichotomy. Jesus was supposed to be great, not a lowly servant. Yet he took that posture. Great men did not do this, yet he did. So I would encourage you this, and you can fill this in your next one. Don't let your pride be your guide. Don't let your pride be your guide. Greatness by self-achievement quietly and subtly brews this entitlement and this pride that we believe, because I did blank, I should earn blank. I paid for this, so I'm entitled to this. I arrived early, so I deserve to be first or have first choice. I got to church on time, so I deserve that parking spot. I deserve that seat. I believe that I have all this success in my company because I follow God. So does that mean if you obey God, you deserve success? I worked hard this week, so I deserve blank. I'm the best on the team, so I can really miss practice. This idea of self-achievement is what gives you status. That concept always leads to pride, always leads to entitlement. It's the you deserve it tactic, and it was designed to inflate your pride. No one would be more entitled than Jesus. Nobody should be more entitled than Jesus. He was perfect, yet considered equality with God something not to cling to. instead became a servant, obedient unto death. If there was anybody that should have been entitled, it should have been Jesus. Yet he made himself a servant. I mean, this is really the concept of the entire Bible. The very foundation of Christianity is receiving something that we don't deserve. Not because of something that we did, but because of something that Jesus did. Yet often, when we get into this concept of greatness in the world and seeing through the world's eyes, we get very easily tricked into the fact that, well, I did this, so I deserve it. And we elevate our pride, when really we don't deserve any of it, because Jesus paid for all of it. Don't let your pride be your guide. Greatness is measured not by status, but by service. Goes on in verse 12, after washing their feet, he put on his robe again and sat down and asked, do you understand what I am doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done. I tell you the truth. Slaves are not greater than their master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. See, to refuse to serve others, to refuse to humble yourself, no matter how great your position, is to place yourself above Jesus. That's what Jesus is saying right here. Look what I did. I am supposed to be the teacher. I'm not even the messenger. I am the great one. And look what I did. To in any point not humble ourselves and be able to serve somebody else is to place ourselves above Jesus. And placing yourself first places Jesus second every single time. I can't imagine if the disciples hadn't gotten this concept. I mean, if they were still vying for spots, for greatness, and for importance, if they had not gotten this concept, would the early church have ever existed? Would it have even worked? I mean, as they're going through all the struggles that they had to deal with, as things are just going wrong and people seem to be dying for their faith and the churches seem to learn it one minute and forget it the next minute, and everything by earthly standards seemed to not be going right, if they wouldn't have gotten this concept, would it have even existed? Or would they still be fighting for greatness and importance and the church not have succeeded? Because greatness is measured by service, not status. I believe they would have quit before they even started. And I can't help but think that maybe that's what's wrong with the church in the United States today. We have forgotten in whose eyes we should seek greatness. And we've forgotten how we should do that through service. Because greatness is measured by service, not by status. I want to throw it up there again for you. Greatness is measured by service, not by status. So I want to ask you this question. How many feet washing moments do you miss each day? Because you don't serve people who you don't see eye to eye with, or you let pride be your guide, or you seek greatness and recognition from the wrong source. How many feet washing moments do you walk by every single day? I mean, Crossroads probably represents in here anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 people who call Crossroads home. What would be the impact if 1,500 people found one foot washing moment that they missed every day and washed? What would happen? What would be the impact if they found two? What would happen be the impact if they found three? You know, we talked about Cherry Street, and we showed a video about Cherry Street. Have we showed that video yet, actually? Yeah, we showed that earlier. You know, that's a result of many people seeing foot washing moments and not walking by. The important part is that they see them and also that they do them. But there are so many little moments that we miss every day. So I want to encourage you, as maybe one next step that we can all take in many different ways, is that we can begin to look for feet washing moments that we miss and we wash. Now, this whole story ends with this one verse in 17. It's this last verse here. It says, now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. See, we are blessed. Blessed is defined by happy and joyful and fulfilled, not because of what we know as Christians, although sometimes we fall into that trap, but because of what we do with what we know. So you can come here and you can listen all day to the idea of washing feet and not missing those moments. And you can understand what I have read and you heard this morning, but to not do anything with it means you might as well have not heard it. We find our greatest blessing, it says, in obeying Christ by serving others. This is truly great. You know, Beauty and the Beast and the Candlestick, as it sings that song at the end, you know, I often don't pull what I teach from a movie. I normally pull it just from the Bible, and I did today, but there's a verse in that song that I thought was just interesting, that they got right on, and it's this line that we may miss. Life is so unnerving for a servant who's not serving. He is not whole without a soul to wait upon. Greatness is measured by service, not status. And I would encourage you, look for those feet-washing moments that you're missing and wash. Let's pray. Lord, I just thank you for your word, that we can use it to be our guide, that you give us keys into this desire for greatness that we all have, whether we bury it, whether we hide it, or whether we let it be seen. You show us that we can seek this greatness in your eyes, not in the world's eyes, and that we can get that through service. And we just thank you for the amazing blessing that we receive when we serve you by looking for people that need their feet washed, and we wash them. We serve in whatever way we can. I just pray that as we leave here today, that people would take that one step. Maybe it's just finding one moment we missed to serve and serving, because we know greatness is found through our service, not our status. Thank you for that. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, in your program, you did receive that connection card that Ben talked about, and I'd encourage you, if you would take that next action step with me, and you would look for those moments to wash, check it off, and we can pray for each other together as we go through this next week, okay? Thanks.
At this time, the ushers are going to come forward and receive our offering. Just want to let you know, if you are new, don't worry about giving anything, but we would like to have that connection card. So if you fill that connection card out, that's something you can put in. And there's a lot of things going on at Crossroads. Let's go ahead and listen to Andy, see what's going on.
My name is Andy Springer, and here's what's happening. This summer, it's easy to stay consistent in your financial support of Crossroads. Simply text Crossroads on 23 to the number shown to get started with Pushpay. Portions of our offerings go to support our partner organizations like Social Services for the Arab Community, or SSFAC. So when you give to Crossroads, your generosity goes further. Ready for a fun day at the beach? Crossroads is going to beautiful Somerset Beach Campground on Saturday, July 22nd, to celebrate baptisms, have a picnic, and take advantage of great activities available at the camp. Find out more and register online. Speaking of baptisms, is it your turn? Find out by attending a baptism meeting right after the service today in the prayer room. Finally, Kids Camp is on the way. Invite, volunteer, donate to help us make this a success for over 300 kids. information about all Crossroad events. Stay connected by visiting crossroadson23.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I know my kids are looking forward to that Camp Kids Treat. Anyway, so that about wraps it up. Remember, if you're new, we've got those free gifts for you, the books in the back. If you've been here for a while, those books are available in the cafe for purchase. We're going to have some people up front if you would like to pray. If there's something going on in your life that you'd like prayer for, we'll have some people here. And we have a baptism meeting going on. If you're interested in baptism, we're going to meet in the prayer room, which is right over there. Hi, Rob. The baptism over there. Otherwise, have a great day.
I'm looking for my own oasis. So close I can taste this. The fear that love alone erases. So I'm back to the basics. I figure it's time I face this. Time to take my own advice. Love alone is worth the fight. Love alone is worth the fight. And I never thought I'd come to this, but it seems like I'm finally feeling numb to this. The funny thing about a name